Mostly when you excavate fossils, you're out in some harsh environment in the desert or something. We were on a beach with beautiful views all around, a gorgeous island just off the coast, pelicans flying, cool breezes. How could you ever ask for a finer situation?
It had been less than 48 hours since we scratched the surface of the cliff, and we had this mammoth skull out and down the road and turned facing up. And normally that's several weeks worth of labor.
It was just a matter of hours from the time the dig started till the thing was jacketed and out and down the beach and at the bottom of the hill poised to go up. It was only a matter of hours. And paleontologically speaking, that was, just the blink of an eye.
Once something like that is dug out, and then it goes to a museum for study and maybe ultimately display, you're not going to have any intimate association with it anymore. It was the experience of digging out that incredible artifact that had everybody high.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, it wasn't that difficult actually to get volunteers. We were doing this on a very limited budget of $0. At the time. And so we pretty much pulled all the money that we had together and called friends and colleagues, and we had the most amazing collection of people that you could imagine. House painters, hippies, musicians.
I was approached because my speciality in life is about heavy lifting and moving big things that are kind of tough to extricate.
Songs for extracting mammoth mine.
We started, Russ and myself, digging around the cranium and beginning to unbury the skull.
Baja tends to kind of make its own rules as you go, and fortunately we were up to the rules. The rules on those days were just as rudimentary as they were when the Egyptians were building pyramids and when the Romans were building roads.
We had to pile up dirt and rocks to make a level road wide enough for the mammoth to get pulled along, line it with rocks, get it wet. This is the hardest physical work I've ever done for free.
Getting the skull out and digging around it, we ran in shifts. I don't think digging stopped at all around the skull. It'd be like going into that wall, just digging straight in like a tunnel, carefully. And then as you approach the edge of the skull, which is about that big around, you'd have to dust with a brush and get real close and then don't touch that and then dig some more. And just the constant digging. I don't think my hand stopped digging for like 8 or 9 hours in one day. But we'd shift. Different people would work different aspects of it, so nobody got tired. And it was amazing.
Ours was not the first mammoth in San Quintin, but it was the one that had the perfect skull and the tusks and was so well preserved. After visiting the site, paleontologists from the Natural History Museum judged that the tusks would probably be in pretty bad condition, and they recommended that we simply cut them off to make it possible to recover the remainder of the skull intact. Well, it wasn't quite so simple as that.
I don't think this saw's doing anything. I think I went through the sandstone. Now I'm dulling the teeth on the ivory.
How you cut a foot of ivory. This is something that most people, and we had a lot of craftsmen on the job, right, who've cut lumber and steel and all these different things, to cut ivory that's tens of thousands of years old, right, without chipping it or damaging it.
They were in great shape. We could not chip them apart, but my chainsaw was there handy, and so we took the chainsaw.
The chainsaw blade was about this big, and it was my dad's poor chainsaw, and oh, he was pissed.
But the greatest tool of what we brought, which we thought would play a little bitty role, was the chainsaw, and thinking to be able to cut timbers to size to fit for shoring. But having that for what we used it for was really swell.
It was scary standing back from the hole with, you know, Jimi Hendrix is in this hole, like twisted around, chainsawing off tusks behind the skull, and there's just smoke pouring out of the hole.
We had a line of people with lids, or like the big Tupperware lids, fanning the oil smoke because he couldn't breathe in there. It's all kinds of white oil smoke coming out. Did anybody explain Jimi Hendrix?
So, do what you gotta do.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
Wow, I feel like I should say a prayer or something.
My expertises were 10 fingers, keeping everyone with their fingers, and hopefully getting the thing out in as big a one piece as we possibly could.
The next morning, as soon as it got light, we started in again. We continued the excavation underneath the Mammoth to free up the bottom, and we finished the plaster jacket, which was a slow job underneath the Mammoth. We had to hold the plaster up underneath and let it dry. It wasn't until mid-afternoon that we were ready to actually take the plaster jacketed skull and try to bring it out.
This rigging was really amazing. That chain going up and then a rope and my truck up on the cliff, and then come-alongs, 2 of them attached to a boulder behind. Jimmy was on a radio. Jimi Hendrix was talking to me and running the come-alongs, and we basically told everybody else to get back, because if a cable snaps or something with that much tension, you could kill somebody.
It could have so swung wrong and crushed somebody. Nobody was hurt. Nobody got hurt. I couldn't believe it.
Nobody got hurt.
Okay, hold on, what you got?
Then we tried drag the skull 100 feet along the base of the cliff. Well, we tried come-alongs to do this. We tried prying with 4x4s, and it was starting to look as if we weren't going to make any progress at all. Finally, we realized we had one option still. We had a tugboat rope, a very large one, about 4 or 5 inches in diameter and about 20 feet long. We tied that to the skull, which was resting on top of the car hood sled. When we did it on the count of 3, everybody would take a large heave, and it would move, maybe an inch.
That was absolutely unique, a once-in-a-lifetime kind of gig that you couldn't script it the way the thing went down.
We began to get 6 inches, maybe a foot or even a couple of feet each time we did it. It was a remarkable event.
That's just a dynamic that happens so rarely in your life. Maybe 10 times in your whole life do you get that kind of cooperation and feeling among people.
We managed to pull it 100 feet down the cliff in a matter of less than half an hour. We backed the truck up to the edge of the cliff and were getting ready to start dragging that thing up the cliff. And we saw coming along the dirt road towards us from the village were police cars.
The local police came first, and followed by the state police, followed by the federales.
I was scared. I kept coming up to my dad saying, "Dad, are we going to go to jail? Are you going to go to jail?"
They were good bureaucrats. They went strictly by the book. We had proof that we did this with good intentions and had applied for the permit, but we didn't have the permit signed in our hand. And they told us, and they assured us they would protect the site and so on, and indeed, as they should have. We were there with them for at least 3 hours until it got completely dark, and finally we went home.
Tell me what you did yesterday.
Yesterday, I shoveled all kinds of sand, and I swung picks and sledgehammers, and I got really sunburned and made myself really sore, and it's awesome. And now I hurt and I'm tired, but it's great. It was sad. I mean, I can't lie. I mean, it was bad. We just had to sit around and wait. And I think a lot of, I mean, we've all been to Baja and to that particular field station, you know, multiple times. And if there's one thing we're not used to doing down there, it's sitting there and doing nothing.
We spent a long afternoon frustrated without getting any official protection for the Mammoth. We had some people went back Sunday morning, and they saw that in fact there were no police guarding this site, and there were vandals. By now there were 20 or 30 people gathered around. There were people rocking, and in fact they turned the Mammoth over, the skull on its side, where it was actually down to where it would be exposed to the beach wash at high tide.
I think overall though, even though it was sad losing the actual skull and everything, but the whole overall experience and like pulling it out and knowing that we did do it with the people and stuff we had, it was, you know, it was rewarding enough.
I know paleontologists who will never get a chance to do that.
There are professional paleontologists that spend their whole careers in dusty, you know, godforsaken places, and here we had this chance to come in a short amount of time and do this salvage that brought this thing out in absolutely pristine condition, far better than we could have imagined.
One of the things that most people may never get a chance to fully experience is the camaraderie that develops when you have a group of people who undertake what seems an insurmountable task and manage to succeed.
And so that was probably the best part of the entire process, was the interaction with the folks that were there.